Israel says new settlements in East Jerusalem are needed to accommodate a growing population there, but Palestinians say they are being built on disputed territory and could possibly derail the peace process. David Adelman is editor-in-chief of World Policy Journal. He joins us from New York. He says baby steps are the key to success. And journalist Sharif Nashasibi is in London. He says the peace process is all process and no peace. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Let me start with you, David Adelman. Baby steps, you say, are what is needed, but you've got a sense of optimism here. The Palestinians have said these settlements are a deliberate and willful escalation, a poke in the eye for everybody, including the Americans. Why do they do it? And this is no good, is it?
Yet again, it's a case of one hand giveth, the other taketh away in the case of the Israelis. But they are making a gesture in releasing 26 prisoners. There's no doubt about that. The problem is that...
Now, we're talking about thousands of... hang on a minute. We're talking about thousands of new units. Slightly different,
right.
Isn't it?
But the Palestinians... The Israelis have released Palestinian prisoners, which is a very big deal for the Palestinians. What is not good is the Israeli settlements. Now, here's the situation, as I see it. In the past, the problem has always been they've gone for a grand process. They've gone for the big hit, the two states, two independent countries emerging from these peace talks. When I talk about baby steps, they need to approach this on a gradual, step-by-step basis. And that's the only way they're going to get any sort of a condominium, reach any sort of a peace process. They need a process to begin, and it can't be one big gulp. Obviously, these issues, like what the Israelis have done, that's difficult, but it's not insurmountable.
Sharif Nashasibi, and I apologise for not pronouncing your name correctly, my mistake there as we began. Jerusalem's mayor calls this expansion, and I quote, a normal process needed to sustain the city's growth. John Kerry says this is something that was already in discussion, shouldn't derail things. Everybody already knew. The majority of Palestinians may not have known about these settlements, but he said it was already in play. We should keep going. Why do you think, or why are you so sceptical going forward about these peace talks?
Well, we need to be clear. Settlements in occupied territory are illegal under international law. And since the resumption of these peace talks, we have more than 2,000 settler homes announced. Now, this is not an act of good faith by Israel. This basically tells Palestinians that Israel is not willing to negotiate. They want the peace process to be doomed. And once the Palestinians pull out, they will then blame the Palestinians for pulling out. Palestinians cannot negotiate while their territory is continuously colonized. And this is the problem with baby steps, because this means the process goes on indefinitely, and all the while Israel establishes facts on the ground which, as time goes by, become irreversible, settlements being one of them.
So it's all over, David, effectively. That's what...
No. It's certainly not all over. I mean, look, John Kerry has gotten a commitment from both sides to negotiate in good faith for 9 months. 9 months is a very long time in the peace process. In the past, we've had, well, in Annapolis...
But meanwhile, these settlements get built, sir. I think that was Sharif's point. Meantime, these settlements continue to grow and encroach on land that Sharif is pointing out is land that the international community doesn't recognize as being settlement-specific.
I think we need to see how this process goes forward. In other words, if, as John Kerry suggested, these settlements were in process for quite a long time before an agreement to resume these talks, let's just see what happens in the future. Are there future settlements actually in place? Are they implanted there? I'm not going to give the Israelis necessarily the benefit of the doubt, but I think both sides have, within the limits of their capabilities, come to the table here in reasonably good faith, at least as good faith as they've ever been able to show to each other in the past. So I think we need to let this process work forward, and baby steps are needed because, as I say, we've been trying for almost 2/3 of a century to get some kind of a grand compromise. Sure. That hasn't worked.
Right. Kerry says the goal has to be peace for both sides. He also said in his press conference last week that compromises are needed on both sides. Sharif, what do you think the Palestinian man and woman on the street is prepared to compromise on? Because you've got a set of politicians trying to, negotiate on behalf of both sides here. Hamas not involved in these negotiations, supported by more than 50% of Palestinians. So when you go, Where are the compromises by these politicians that would be acceptable to the Palestinian people?
Well, to Palestinians, and I fully understand this, they feel that they have compromised enough, and they have. The peace process has been going on since the early 1990s, and all this time, Israel has continued settlement activity. It has continued to build the wall throughout the occupied territories. It has continued to violate the rights of Palestinians. And all this has been happening under the supposed good faith of Israel during the peace process. So Palestinians don't have any faith in this process because it doesn't safeguard their rights. And the longer they negotiate, the longer Israel establishes these facts.
With all due respect,
with all due respect,
what compromises have Palestinians made during this whole period? Everybody's always talking about, and believe me, I'm no apologist for Israel, as most of my Israeli friends will know. But what kind of compromises, what good faith compromises have the Palestinians actually implemented during that entire time?
What provocations have they done? Are they building settlements in Israel? Are they encroaching on Israeli land?
What?
Are they violating and occupying Israelis? That's just not happening. This is happening on the Israeli side. What do you expect from the Palestinians?
You haven't answered the question. What
I
compromises
absolutely did answer the question.
To make? What compromises? That's a fairly straightforward question. I think that's a question that we need to understand. The Palestinians need to make a degree of compromises. Now, the Palestinian, when we say the Palestinian street, that is a vast, vast panoply of differences. You have young people who are prepared to go into the street at a moment's notice with Molotov cocktails and rocks. On the other hand, you have a lot of Palestinians, the establishment Palestinians, the people who are the shopkeepers and so on. They want to see development there. They want to see economic advancement.
They want to see a viable country of their own. They don't want to see occupation. None of them do. They are homogenous in that respect. They don't want their country to be occupied and colonized.
Last point, David, please.
No, it's simply a question of you have to look at the perspective of both sides. And in both sides, there is a vast spectrum of belief. Israelis are not uniformly believe. There are many Israeli peaceniks, if you will. I mean, they really believe in a peace process. There are others who believe, the conservatives who believe, we have to take over as much territory as we possibly can.